Lena kairata, kerata wea para, ketaba dipuo, zabato, hadifele, kare lena kairata, kerata wea para, ketaba dipuo, zabato, hadifele, aunta tentekele, da tentekele, da tentekele, tekele kuboya tuto sana marena. Ladies and gentlemen, program director, the two speakers, officials of the department, Bagaetsu Dumelang. I am deeply honored beyond explanation to join you as we celebrate the nationwide celebrations on heritage, our heritage to be specific. My name is Kutloano wa Malahlela, and I am a community development practitioner by passion and by profession, a cultural enthusiast whom being African is not a slogan, but a sacred identity that I carry with me. I draw inspiration for today's address from a timeless question in the field of linguistics posed in the 1800s by the forever legendary S.E.K. Mkhaya, when he asks, will the cabbages not grow if agriculture is taught in isiXhosa? This provocative question directed at the colonial regime was not merely an act of defiance. It was a deliberate mockery of the ignorance behind the belief and the senseless idea that development and education could only occur if Africans were taught in English or Afrikaans. Today, as we gather in the corridors of justice and constitutional development with you, the custodians of this institution, I cannot resist reimagining this question for our time and ask you, will the Constitution lose its meaning if it is read in Setswana? Does justice become less just if it is explained in isiXhosa? And will the law cease to protect if it is written in Sepedi? At the heart of this question is more than a call to preserve African indigenous languages. It is a wake-up call, a reminder that the erosion of our languages is not only a cultural injustice, but also a collective failure to safeguard a shared responsibility for their survival for the future. The gentle but steady decline of African languages in our social fabric is a matter of national concern, one that implicates us all, including me, who's addressing you about African languages in English. The essence and power embedded in our indigenous tongues cannot be allowed to perish. Their poetic rhythm, and for some, their tongue-twisting clicks, are not merely decorative elements. They are sacred vessels carrying the soul of our beliefs, the archives of our histories, and the repositories of sustainable practices that we presently need for a just society. In my work of community development, I had the honor of visiting both Africa and Europe. And through these experiences, I observed a deeply revealing contrast. In cities such as Stuttgart in Germany, Strasbourg in France, Amsterdam in the Netherlands, one cultural element that is non-negotiable is language. If you wish to fully participate in these societies or access their opportunities, you must learn their languages. Their people may compromise on anything, including electing leaders, but they can never compromise on their language. Yet when you travel to Masvingo or Harare in Zimbabwe, Gaborone in Botswana, Lusaka in Zambia, Windhoek in Namibia, or even here in Tshwane, the very first cultural element many Africans compromise, often voluntarily, is language. How many of us here, when we start a conversation with a stranger, we immediately assume that they do not understand our language, and to accommodate them, we speak to them in English. Let's show hands. It can't be that there's only two people. This reflects a deep-seated colonial trauma, a belief that all of us, we were breastfed, that English is the language of economics, of success, and of advancement. Some will even argue that we have too many languages for English not to be the official language. And others will argue that few people understand our languages and everyone understands English. The painful truth in this is that we tirelessly accommodate at the expense of our culture. We tirelessly accommodate the people who speak this language at the expense of our culture. And on the other hand, they really attempt to learn our languages. Yet, we tirelessly perfect theirs, and even correcting each other when we mispronounce their names or their words. For instance, when you pronounce schedule as schedule, or espresso as espresso. This cultural surrender has even extended to our classrooms, where our learners are told, do not speak that Shebin language here. But for us, African languages are not tools of communication. They are sacred vessels of identity. Once they are ridiculed, our entire identity is ridiculed. Language, therefore, is not a side issue. It is a structural barrier to sustainable development, limiting the participation of the majority in governance, justice, and global agendas. African languages are not relics of the past. They are the foundation to building an inclusive and sustainable future. And colleagues, in the context of our division, or your division here, language is more than a medium. It is a bridge or a barrier. If the language of the law is inaccessible to the people, then the justice itself becomes inaccessible. How can a citizen claim their constitutional rights if they cannot understand the language in which those rights are written? How can communities engage meaningful with legal processes if the justice system speaks in a tongue foreign to their lived experiences? It is in your work, your legislation, our legislation, the legal literacy, the courtroom proceedings, and the public outreach that the transformation of language from an obstacle into an instrument of empowerment must occur. The Constitution belongs to all who live in this country, and so too must its language. Therefore, the task before us is not merely about translating documents. It is about transforming justice into something that speaks literally to the people it serves. It is about ensuring that our grandmother in Harangua, a farmer in Lusikisiki, or a young person in Tohoyando can walk into a courtroom and hear justice spoken in a language that resonates with their soul. This is not a cultural imperative. It is a constitutional one, a development.